It feels like I've been working at the content and business game longer than a lot of the people that have already made it and have already been successful. And lately, that idea has become a fixation for me. It's been something that has become very destructive, and it really threw me off of my game for a little while. Now, I'm trying to get back on track and to deal with that sense of entitlement, but I want to talk about what it does to you psychologically. I want to explain how this keeps people stuck and give you some advice for moving through it, and also just kind of talk about what exactly this feeling is, and how pervasive it can be in our lives without us even realizing it. So the thing is that I've given up a lot of evenings, a lot of weekends, pretty much all of them over the last 6.5 years. I've been very serious about content, about making something of myself through the social media, through some kind of online channel. I just see that as like the highest point of return. And so I put a ton of work into it, and it's led to me being interested in business in other, capacities. And I've experimented with starting up my own agencies and stuff like that. And at some point it starts getting frustrated when you know how much work you've put in, and you know that you're not just an amateur, you're not just dabbling anymore. And maybe you are an amateur in terms of like how good you actually are, but like this isn't a new thing for you. This isn't a passing phase, and you've been working really hard consistently for a long time, and you're seeing other people win. You're seeing other people do better than you, and like sometimes they're not better than you, and that's super annoying as well. And sometimes they really are. It's like, okay, well, should I quit? Like, am I just not cut out for it? Because this guy's killing it, and he's only been in business for a year. This is his first year or something, and he's crushing it. That's super frustrating. Basically, I started off growing up thinking that I was nothing, just assuming that I had nothing special to offer to the world, that I didn't have any station in life that would get me any special favors. Nobody was going to try to help me. Nobody cared. That's just how I was raised. That's how people taught me to think, whether explicitly or just through their actions, whether it was implicitly and just the way that they said things, whatever it is. I just went into the world thinking that I was gonna have to claw my way up to the top, that I was on the bottom rung of the ladder. I wasn't even on the ladder yet. I had to fight my way onto the ladder and crawl my way to the top. And because I had that attitude, whenever I wasn't good at something, whenever things didn't go my way, it was really easy for me to just accept it as where I was at, like that's just the reality of my situation right now. I'm just not that good yet, but I can start getting better. And I had that sense of, I guess, humility, maybe not the right word, but I think it kind of is, where I could learn from setbacks, I could learn from failures very quickly. But then over time, I started to develop some competence. I started to get good at things, and to realize that a lot of people are not putting any effort into thinking about what they're doing, and they're not any good at what they're doing either. And so I went from seeing myself as a complete loser that had absolutely nothing going for him to having a stack of evidence that, hey, I'm worth something. Like I have some value to offer, and professionally, in terms of content, in terms of my work ethic, just the value that I bring to the table. And I built this step by step by step. And at some point, I started to look at that and look at what other people were doing, look at my intelligence, look at other people's intelligence, and just start to compare that, and to get a little bit judgmental, and to get a little bit frustrated that, hey, this person's really stupid and they're not working that hard. They shouldn't be beating me. Like, it's just not fair. And again, at the beginning, it was like, okay, well, I believe that life isn't fair, and so I have to just outwork them. That's just how it is. And again, that was easy when I was younger, but over time, it starts to get more and more difficult. And a few things that have happened with that are that it's made me very impatient with people, and it's made it very difficult for me to see them in a productive way, which has greatly diminished my ability to communicate with others. And that is one of the most important skills you can possibly have outside of managing yourself, managing your own mind, having a strong character, which is a lot easier said than done. And it's not glamorous either. Having good, because that'll bring things like conscientiousness, a good work ethic. It'll make sure that you have integrity. It'll help you to stay consistent over the long term. It'll keep you from falling victim to fear and to jealousy and to envy and all those things. And then there's just the ability to set good habits for yourself, to understand what are your psychological blind spots, what are the cognitive pitfalls and short circuits that you need to understand that these things are going to happen so that you can strategize around them. Because a lot of people have bad strategies for getting things done. They want to start a new habit, they want to go to the gym, but they don't actually understand how habits are formed. And so they try to do it in a way that doesn't really work with the brain's natural processes. For example, right? So you understand yourself and you have a good baseline for like what kind of person you are, that the kind of person that can be successful. Past that, you have to be able to communicate with people. You have to understand why they're making the decisions that they're making. You have to understand the influences that are affecting their thought processes, their values, their beliefs, their decisions. If you can't learn to understand human natures, both to help yourself and to navigate the social world around you, all the social dynamics that we're faced with every single day, you're not going to get very far. And communication is one of the key pieces of that, because if you can communicate well, if you understand what you're trying to say and you can articulate that in a compelling, persuasive way to others, you can become a person of incredible influence. That's all marketing is, that's all sales is, that's all management is, that's all leadership is, that's all a lot of the competition that we see in the world really boils down to. And a lot of that can be learned just through observation and careful study, but it's really difficult to overcome the aspects of ourself, of our own nature, that push against that say, no, things should be this other way, so I'm not going to play by the rules. I'm not going to worry about what this other person thinks because I want things to be, to go my way. That's where most people get stuck, is they think that the world should conform to their ideologies. They think that the results that they get should be consistent with the daydreams that they scheme up and that have no basis in reality. It's also very difficult to get a lot of people to do what you want them to do. And I'm this isn't the place for me to say what are those things, but I mean, if you're trying to sell a product, if you're trying to lead a team, if you're trying to manage a relationship, or just to be a better friend to the people around you, better family member, whatever, it's easy to get caught up in like, well, you have to do things the way I want them to. And sometimes there is a place for like, hey, you need to be forceful and assertive in your personality. You need to make people like fall in line with you. But 9 times out of 10, that's not really how people with actual power do things. Yes, there is a time and a place for it, like I said, but in general, a good leader is somebody who makes you want to follow them. And so whatever you're doing, whatever you're trying to accomplish, you're going to need help. You're going to need people that agree with you and that want to see you succeed. Because if everybody's out to get you and to tear you down because you don't treat them right, you can't communicate well with them, you're entitled, you look down on them, you're judgmental, guess what? They're not going to help you get anywhere. And that's kind of the place that I had started to fall into a little bit. And it was a very subtle shift. And so I want to talk about that, because there's a few things that may be affecting you right now that are hurting your odds of success that you just have a blind spot for. And it comes down to how you perceive people and how you perceive yourself and the world around you. And you might wonder why I'm talking about entitlement on a psychology podcast. And I think that there's a disconnect between what the ancients considered to be study of human nature, and therefore the study of psychology, and what modern therapists have made it, and modern publishing companies have made it. Because I'm interested in why people do what they do. And so if there are human weaknesses that are preventing you from being successful, and it's a mental thing, it's a behavioral thing, I want to flesh those out. I want to bring them to the surface and understand them, because what I've learned is that it's usually not necessarily the work that gets people. It's usually their own lesser nature. It's the laziness, it's the fear, it's the envy, it's the pride, it's the stuff that that makes you not want to do it in the first place, because you don't have to, or because it's hard, it's uncomfortable, or you don't feel like you should, like you're entitled, like I'm talking about. And then there's things like greed and lust and things like that just distract you, and they're things that pull you off course. And if you read history, if you study successful people, powerful people, the type of artists too, the kind of people that you might want to emulate. There's a lot of stories of people who were massively successful in one area and then had a super tragic downfall and their whole life collapsed. And it's like, okay, they were a great whatever, but then their home life fell apart, or they couldn't get their addictions under control, or they got too greedy, or they became insufferable, whatever. And like those are the things that bring about the downfall. And so I consider that to be part of psychology. And so because it has to do with human nature. It's just something that is relatively predictable. It's something that we can understand. It's something that we can observe in ourselves and in others. And I think it's worth pointing out. So besides how I communicate with people, the other side to that is that I started to have a difficult time seeing setbacks as opportunity. And that's another important idea that you can have. It's not necessarily as important as communication, because it doesn't have to do direct with how you deal with people, but it's like a meta lesson. It's something that affects how you handle everything else. So if I want to overcome this, and I try, and through sheer force of will, just try to make myself not feel entitled, and I fail at that, well, do I see that as a final failure, that I'm just doomed to be this way? I'm doomed to get locked into this negative path that I've started to set foot on, and that like this is it, like I'm just going to be this person forever? Or do I say, okay, this is difficult, that was a setback, which means that I have new information. I can learn, why was this hard? Why did I fail at this thing? What was the tension inside of me that made it so unbearable that I had to just continue being a douchebag, whatever it is. And obviously that applies to really anything that you're going to do. If you want to be a musician, if you want to be an athlete, if you want to be a coder, if you want to be an entrepreneur, whatever, you're going to have so many struggles. If you want to master something, you're going to go through a very painful process where you're not good at it. You just suck, and that's the reality. And if you're entitled and think that, oh no, this is okay, I don't need to do this anymore, I can just get away with putting in the bare minimum effort, I'm too attractive to work this hard, or I'm too gifted, I'm too talented, whatever. If that's your mindset, you're not going to put in the reps that it takes to get to the finish line. And it's interesting how this wasn't necessarily a problem for me when I was younger. I had other problems, but this is something that developed like in the last 2 years. And if I'm honest about it, it really started with this subtle like shift in how I thought about things, which has always kind of been there. I've always known I'm a little bit smarter than the average person, but it started to become a fixation. It started to become a point of frustration where I was looking around at people who were just dumb, let's just be honest, and I get mad at them. I'm like, you should be doing better. You should have learned by now. You shouldn't be making these mistakes. You shouldn't be affecting me in this way. I shouldn't be picking up your messes and blah, blah, blah. And it's very human, I think, to have that reaction. But what's interesting is that I kind of didn't manage those thoughts, and they grew into something that was much more destructive, and they sort of built up like a life of their own, to where it was almost an instinct. It's almost like this oppressive force, like an impulse that I have now, that like that's just how I think about people, is that they're all stupid. And I've had to be super honest with myself about this and start trying to make certain steps to remedy it, and to just be real with myself and other people, like, hey, this is something that I'm struggling with. And I think that's also another good point, is that things can develop. Just because something wasn't a problem a long time ago doesn't mean that it hasn't become one now. And if you're not constantly looking for personal work to do on yourself and to get better, then you're not going to move forward, which means that you're moving backwards. This is a good example of that, because I kind of thought that, well, I'm getting better at content. I've started another business. I have clients. Things are going well for me. I have a channel that's popping off, getting a lot of views. Like on the outside, it kind of looks like I'm doing better. But on the inside, I'm actually dealing with this character problem that, in my opinion, is so much more important to get worked out. Because what if I make all the money in the world? What if everything works out for me? But I have this poisonous idea and mindset that I'm just better than everybody else. And that can help me be more confident. And don't get me wrong, I joke around a lot about it. I hype myself up a little bit, and I'll like point out that I'm better, not in the sense that I'm just a better person overall, but like I can beat people at XYZ. If I'm playing a game, I was like, I want to win, right? If I'm making money, I want to make the most money. That still hasn't happened, but like I have that competitive instinct in me. That's okay. That's healthy to a certain extent, but it kind of grew into something that I didn't anticipate. So I'm working through that. And it's what I want to call your attention to as well. Like, what are the things that over time that, they started as seeds. They started as just like a small mindset, something that you like a bad thought that you entertained, something that you kind of knew wasn't the right thing to think about people. You kind of knew it wasn't the most productive mindset to have, but you made excuses for it and then you let it sit there. I'm not judging you about that. Obviously, I'm trying to share the fact that I deal with the same thing, but I want to encourage you to take some time and think about this. Even if entitlement isn't necessarily your problem, what else is, right? Because we all have things to work on. And if we grow and we focus on like, how do I make better habits and how do I hype myself up for success? Like, what's the positive psychology behind accomplishing my goals? How do I understand the power dynamics taking place at work so I can get promoted? Those things are great. And I love teaching those things. But at the same time, if you're not growing as a person and really in a spiritual sense, you can make it in an external capacity, but that doesn't mean that your life is worth building, right? And it could be arguably worse that you're in this position now, because now you're so distracted by the good things and you feel like you have evidence to believe the negative stuff about everybody else. And that's getting harder and harder with the way that social media works, because a lot of people, especially in I don't even want to say that, just people in general on the internet, they want to get your attention, and the best way to get your attention is through an emotional hook. And you all know this, right? Like there's a hook in every video, and the ones that make you feel something are the ones that generally create the most traction. And so influencers who have figured out that, hey, I'm really good at sparking a sense of outrage. I'm really good at sparking a sense of envy or of greed. And it can be aspirational, but it's usually not just pure. It's usually not just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna conquer the world. There's also these other components of like how it affects you in negative ways as well. There's two sides of the coin. That's all I'm saying. And it's worth auditing, like, what are the influences, right? Because if I'm being honest, there are certain people that I listen to, there are certain books that I read, there are certain, ideologies that I allow in my life that have made this a little bit more difficult to deal with. And it's not to say I have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. People are not perfect, right? Like, this person could be giving me good advice and they're just kind of locked into a way of getting attention that is also counterproductive and it's maybe having some negative side effects. So it's just worth being, honest with yourself about, because these character traits, they really creep up behind you. And it's not until you're struggling with something that you know is wrong, that you know is going to hurt your chances of fulfillment, of happiness. It's going to hurt your social connections. It's going to hurt your mental health or whatever it is. And you know that it's wrong, but you just can't stop yourself from doing it. Character development is one of the most important aspects of personal growth that you can undertake. And lately I've started to feel like I was just getting restless, because I've been working on this for so long and about outlasted the majority of people. And I'm just like, okay, well, what gives? And that led to me becoming very claustrophobic. And because I, like, just feeling oppressed by the fact, like, I've been locked in this lane for so long. I put my blinders on, as the internet says, like, I've just been running, grinding, trying to make something work. And then I look up and I'm like, I'm the only one on the course. Like, I'm the only one doing this. And I only see people that are either on the sidelines who don't understand and they're making fun of me because I'm running as hard as I can against nobody, or I'm looking at the other contenders who didn't even start. They just maybe kind of walked a little bit and they said that they were going to start something and they did some research and they were never willing to spend any money on it. They were never willing to give up their weekends, their evenings, whatever. And it's like, okay, well, those people don't count as far as the competition is concerned. And then I see the people that are so far past the finish line. It's like, what gives? It's frustrating. And there are some psychological components to that. Like, I see that, but is it true? Because I don't see everyone. The people that are so far past me, I don't see what they've gone through to get there. I don't know what's going on in the lives of the people that never started. Maybe this isn't that important to them. There's that's not a reason to judge people. People on the sidelines, yeah, they don't know what's going on. You can't be mad at them for that. They're just here for the entertainment. And so I'm looking around feeling oppressed, like, oh, this is stupid, this is pointless, let me go start another business. And I went out and I applied the skills that I had learned to starting something new. And like a few months later, I just go, why didn't I double down on what I was already doing? Why did I get distracted with something else? Now my attention is really divided. Now I'm like maxed out on time and stress and everything else. And it's like, the thing is that other business is kind of working, because I kind of know what I'm doing a little bit, and it's just a lot of work to get going. So it's like, yeah, I'm not like super successful, but there's proof of concept, and I can see the evidence that this could work. I just have to stick with it. And so now I'm like, well, I don't want to let it go if there's real potential there, but I really don't want to let the thing go that I've been working on for 6-7 years, 6.5 years, I'm kidding. So I'm super divided between these two things. Like, what do I choose? And the truth is that if I just hadn't gotten overwhelmed by that feeling of like isolation and pressure and the entitlement that, hey, those guys are already won, I should be there too, I'm so much better than everybody else, it doesn't make sense to be in the middle like this. Like, I don't like it, and I feel exposed. I feel like everybody's looking at me funny, like, you've been doing this for how long and your videos still suck, or your content's still the way it is, or you see what I'm saying? And that pressure, honestly, I think I made a mistake, guys. I'm gonna be real with you. I think I allowed something in my unconscious to overwhelm me, and so now my attention's divided, and I have to figure that out. And it's not the end of the world, right? I made a decision, whether or not it was the right one. I think that I should act as if it was the right one and just keep going, make the most of the situation, do what I can to make both things happen. At the end of the day, if I fail at this, what's the big deal? I don't think I'm ever gonna quit making content, because I've seen how much of an impact it can make, and I've seen evidence of success. I've had, I've made money, I've got millions of views, I've made a difference in people's lives. I can see that. And so that's motivated me over the last few years to persist, even though it's been slow. It's been a struggle, and I've had personal things going on. And now I'm like thinking through, well, what are these personal things? Like what are some other character flaws that are preventing me from getting to the finish line? This entitlement threw me off course for a little while. What else is there? Is there impatience? Is there fear? Is there pride? Is there envy? Is there things that are distracting me? And at the end of the day, that's the stuff that nobody talks about. Like, I don't see psychology content around like the hopelessly corrupted, crappy aspects of your unconscious, of your animal nature, of your impure motives, and your faulty wiring, and just the selfishness and the laziness and the cowardice and all the other stuff, like the immoral things about you that affect your mind and cause you to make the wrong decisions. I just don't see that, and it's not glamorous, and it's not what people want to hear, because they want to check in and see, oh, how can I use this trick today to get better? It's like, oh, well, you have to look in the mirror at something that's super uncomfortable to look at, that you don't want to admit to anybody, because it's embarrassing. It makes you look like a bad person, because you are a bad person, and it's been revealed. And it's super uncomfortable. I don't know how to say. I keep saying that word, but like, this is what it is. Like, it's not pleasant. And so it's interesting to me how unproductive this mindset is, right? Like, if things are just easy for you, and you have a lot of talent, and you're attractive, and people will like give you all this attention, and they see you as like the gifted kid, whatever, and it can be hard to fail at something because you don't feel like you should. And I've noticed that a lot lately with people around me that are in their mid-20s, and I just turned 30, so I have a little bit of space to kind of look at that age range. Not a lot. I'm not old or anything. I feel old, but whatever. I know somebody's listening to this going, oh, just you wait. It's like, yes, I get it, but my experience at this moment is that I feel a little weary, we'll say. But I'll look at people in their mid-20s, excuse me, and I noticed that a lot of the guys that were super cool, that I used to want to hang out with, that had all this potential, they're really good communicators, they're charismatic. I'm like, yeah, let's go into business with these people. Let's work with these people. I've made business mistakes like this in the past too. And I realized, like, actually, those people don't work hard. It's super weird to me. Like, the ones that have the most potential don't use it, because things are easy to them. And so when it starts to get hard, they just quit. They go do something else. Like, oh, this isn't easy anymore. And it's strange. And they think, though, that they're working hard. They really do believe that. And I'm objectively trying to look at this, and I'm just going, no, you don't. Like, you quit after the first major failure, the first major obstacle. So if you have this sense of entitlement, I can definitely see how it would prevent you from getting very far, because in the few months that I've been dealing with it, it's like when you it's like my old washing machine. Like, it would just get super unbalanced and start banging back and forth, like hitting all of the walls around it. It'd almost fall over sometimes. It'd leak. It's bow, 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 bow. That's how it feels like when entitlement came into my life. Like, my ability to focus and to just work and put out good quality content and to communicate with people, to get along with them, to be likable, to like them, it just completely shook apart. And thankfully, it didn't go too far, right? And I'm starting to work on it now. But I just want to remind you, struggle is the baseline. It is not a sign that something is wrong. If you are having a difficult time, that means you're doing something. That's it. And it can be really frustrating to stick with something long enough to master it. That's where I feel right now. And this is an interesting point of reflection, because when I first started, I had this idea of how things were going to be, and I just knew that it was going to take a ton of work. And then the first year or 2, 3 years, it's like, yeah, I'm building those habits, but I'm also seeing some success. So it's like, I know that I'm not where I should be, but I'm seeing enough evidence that this will work to be encouraged by it. And then there's just like long gap to where, like, year 3 to 6 is like, it's just invisible work. And like, I know that things are happening. I see I'm busy non-stop. Then I go look at the content. I'm like, is it better? I go look at the business. I'm not really making that much money. What's going on here? And it's funny, because when I started, my timeline was like a decade. I said, hey, if I work on this for the next 10 years, I'm going to be somewhere. I'm going to be good at this. And the truth is that it took me some time to figure out what to focus on. And then it took me a few years to get the baseline skills down. And now I'm like maybe halfway through that 10-year mark, not necessarily just with content, but like, 6 years of content and then a couple more years in my early 20s just trying to figure things out. Like, I'm in this weird middle zone where I really do feel like I don't have anybody around me except for one friend who's got his own business going. And it's just an odd place. It's something that is calling to mind the need for endurance and just perseverance, and this idea that I just need to fall back on the skills, and I just need to like put my head down and keep going. And I want to encourage you guys to do the same thing wherever you're at in your personal development journey. It's going to be longer than you expect. It's going to take more work than you expect. If you're dealing with depression like right now, and you go look at my course, which I'm putting together, I'm like halfway through the first week, which is where we're going to talk about how to lay the foundation, how to shift out of a negative thought pattern, how to break free of depression, how to interrupt anxiety, how to replace that with a super positive, compelling state of mind where you're ready for success, you're optimized for each and every day, and you can approach life with the full weight of your unconscious supporting you instead of trying to tear you apart with mental health issues and PTSD memories that like you're trying to work and you got a ton of anxiety, you've got a ton of depression. Like, how far are you going to get? The same way if you're super entitled, how far are you going to get, right? So I'm putting that course together. The first few days are going to be free. I'm going to give you kind of some of the valuable tips and tricks for kind of gaining a foothold in your struggle with mental health issues. That's going to be free. It's going to be exclusive content, but you guys can get in there and check it out. And if you like it, hopefully enough people will sign up for the low tier subscription or course, whatever it is, enough to justify me making the rest of it, because it's going to be a ton of work. But I'm working on that, and I'm reflecting on all of these things, and I'm realizing that even the people that learn these skills, like if I give you the ability to master your mind right now, you'll never feel depressed again. Maybe it'll come over you for a moment, but then like you have the tools to get rid of it. Same thing with anxiety. The same thing with, you had a bunch of bad relationships. Now you're in a healthy one, but you still have that trauma coming up to make you kind of self-destructive, right? Like, how do you overcome that? I can give you those tools and you can use them a few times, but it's the endurance that really gets people. They get tired of doing it. It's like, oh, I have to make myself feel better again. I have to overcome this again. And I kind of get it, like it took me longer to get to the point of fatigue where I was like, I just don't want to do the work anymore. Some days it took me longer to get to that point because I had a lot of like fear that like these things were going to ruin me if I didn't master them. And that drove me a long way. And eventually the fear ran out because I stopped caring what people thought of me, ironically. And so I stopped minding when I became entitled and became a little abrasive with people. And like, that wasn't the correct thing to do by any means. That's why I'm in this situation making this episode. And it's just interesting to think about. And I want to encourage you that, whatever you're doing, if you're not successful at it, you probably just haven't been at it long enough. And that can be something as extravagant as being like an NFL athlete. Like you want to be a professional football player and that's what you're training for. Like you listen to my podcast to like help you get better at that. And it's like, it's not working. It's not happening. Well, you may need more time. You may need to increase the volume on your output quite a bit and expand your time horizons longer than you're comfortable with. If you're trying to start a business, if you're trying to just climb the corporate ladder, but not be super depressed and you want to have a good quality of life. And it's like, you're just fighting this uphill battle and nothing is really shifting for you. And it feels like you've been doing it for a long time. I would invite you to reflect on the reality of human nature, that you are fighting against something that is deeply embedded in your programming. That is, it's a biological thing. So it's a physical factor that you have these short circuits. You have these immoral, negative ways of behaving and thinking. And some of it's in your unconscious, some of it's from the people around you, the people influencing you, some of it's learned behaviors. This stuff is hard to deal with. Just like it's hard to be a published author. It's difficult, and you just have to outlast everybody else. You have to outlast yourself at some point. Like, can that negative aspect of your nature eventually just shrivel up and die because you've been attacking it and starving it and just decimating it and working with all of your willpower to overcome it, and you've learned the techniques to make that more efficient, so it's not just willpower, you're leveraging the power of your brain instead of working against it, like its natural mechanisms. Are you able to, if you can do that long enough, will it eventually be destroyed? Yes. Anything can be conquered with enough persistence. Any obstacle can be overcome with enough dedication. If you just refuse to quit, if you are relentless for long enough, things will start to move. Now, I'm not saying that means you will overcome the laws of physics or something like that, but you'll understand what I'm getting at. Whether that's your own nature, whether that's the world around you, if you are persistent enough and you approach it with the right mindset, for example, not being entitled, just being humble and recognizing that this is difficult and I suck, and that's okay. That's where I'm starting. I'm gonna claw my way up the ladder. I don't care how long it takes. That's what you have to do. And you have to keep doing it every single day. Just remember that I felt like my perspective was shifting because I had more experience. It's like, oh, I'm realizing that I'm smarter than people and that I'm better than everybody else. But in truth, experience doesn't always equate to wisdom. You may not be drawing the right conclusions from the data that you've collected. Maybe you are, but there's also a good chance that you're overlooking things because you're blinded by human nature. So don't be entitled. You do not deserve success. Nothing is owed to you. Nobody is going to give you anything. And I'm not saying this to like give you tough love. It's just the cold hard facts. It's just reality. It's nothing personal. Nobody cares about my success more than I do. So I was told growing up that life isn't fair. Nobody's coming to save you. No one's going to do anything for you. No one cares about you. Not in a negative way. Just, understand that this is the case. And I think that there was a negative mindset when that was taught to me. But the benefit of it was that I just didn't expect anything. And I want to give you that, just the good part of that. Just don't expect things from anybody. Don't expect life to be fair. Don't expect things to be easy. Yes, you'll catch a lucky break every now and again. But in general, you should prepare for the worst case scenario. You should say that whatever it is that you want to do is going to take at least 10 years. It's going to take more work than I can possibly imagine. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to push and stretch me in ways that I've never even dreamed could be possible that I would physically be able to accomplish. And I'm just gonna have to take it one step at a time. And I'm gonna have to be humble and recognize that this is how it is for everyone. Yes, there are certain people that are just prodigies. They just blow up overnight. They post one video and they're viral. They try one time at something and it just works for them. Their first business makes them a multi-millionaire in like 2 years. That's not the reality for most people. Most new businesses fail. Most people that go after high-level professional positions, they fail. Most people that try to invent something fail. Most people that try to write great works of literature or great music or whatever it is, they fail. You're not special. Those people, a lot of them are geniuses. Most of them have worked harder than you, especially the people that have been doing it their whole lives. They outworked you, they outlasted you, and they still didn't make it. What does that tell you? Life's not fair. It's not just about what you think you've earned. You have to learn other things. You have to learn what are the invisible strings that are being pulled, the invisible obstacles outside of just raw persistence that are keeping these people from being successful. And it could be entitlement. A lot of times you look at geniuses, they're not pleasant. They're super annoying. Nobody wants to work with them, so they die in obscurity. You have to learn to overcome that. I could go on and on and on about this, but I think you understand the point. So I'll just leave it there. If you guys are interested at all in the course or also the community, because it's on School, if you guys haven't used that before, basically you can join. It's a little bit like Facebook where you have the social aspect. You can talk to people that listen to this show, that are interested in the same things as you are, that potentially can help you, that can be accountability partners or just friends. And also, maybe, who knows, you'll meet somebody there that you fall in love with and they become your spouse because you're both super obsessed with becoming the best that you can and with learning psychology and just the kind of intellectual vibe that we have going here. Slightly random, slightly kind of, meandering, I guess, a little bit, but it's fun. We all have a good time. I enjoy talking to you guys. I think that you'll enjoy talking to each other as well. It'll take time to build that community up. It's free, like I said. Just get in there and join, and then as the course comes through, it's super easy to navigate. You just go through and click on the videos that you want. I'm not gonna post them anywhere else. It's strictly meant to give you the most valuable, life-changing lessons about the mind that I have learned in the last decade and a half or so. So it's gonna be super valuable. Make sure you sign up. It's gonna be in the episode description. Look forward to it, guys. Also, if you play chess, you're interested in chess, check out my Instagram or YouTube page at Psyops Chess. It's blowing up. Made it a couple days ago, and I have hundreds of thousands of views. It's wild. That's never happened to me ever. And it's kind of funny that I go through this personal development thing with how can I overcome this lesser nature? How can I advance spiritually and be I don't want to say a better person, but you know what I mean. And it's almost like I started to do that and then something shifted and it worked. And it's this other thing's popping off and I'm getting lots of attention. And I'm not saying this is the lucky break. Maybe that's just a test to see if it goes to my head and I become prideful there. Maybe it's going to dry up tomorrow. Who knows? But if you stay committed to self-improvement and to being the best that you can and doing things the right way and walking with a certain amount of wisdom, I think things are going to go well for you guys. Make sure to share this with somebody that you think needs it, and I will see you soon.